Today we continue with our tutorial for data science and machine learning, and today we are going to be talking about matrix indexing. So the first thing I'm going to do at this point is press Ctrl L on the keyboard. I already explained this to you before now. Ctrl L on the keyboard will clear your screen. So you have Ctrl plus L, okay? Alright, so at this point I want to display a matrix made up of one element 1 to 20, which I actually introduced in the previous tutorial, that is lesson 2, and this is a matrix B, as you can see. Alright, so but actually I want to use this matrix as matrix A, so I'm going to simply say A gets B. Alright, so let's start by selecting a single element. So I want to select element 7. To select a single element, you simply specify the row and the column of that element inside a square bracket, okay? So to select 7, you simply say A to 2. That gives us 7. So I'm going to write, in selecting, you have A square brackets, this is row number, and specify column number. Let's just leave it this way. So have it in mind that this is how it works. So let's talk about selecting entire rows. Let's say we want to select row 1. So let's say we want to select row 1. You simply specify A. At this point, you simply just don't specify the column number. Just specify the row number and put a comma. The row number, comma, and that selects row 1. The same thing for row 2. A. I want to select row 2. And I'm not specifying the column. So that is how it works. So in this case, I'm taking row 2, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the same thing goes for column. If I specify the column without specifying the row, let's say I want to select column 5. Let's say A. I'm not specifying the row, so I'm just put a comma and write down 5. And you can see select the last column 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. We've talked about single element, entire row columns. It's going to be a bit challenging now. Let's now talk about contiguous rows. You want to select row 1 to row 3. Let's see. So this is row 1, row 2, and row 3. So it all goes the same way, but in this case, you need to specify the collection representing the range. So in this case, you simply say the collection of row 1 to row 3, and at this point, if you put a comma, it now asks of the column that you want to use at this point. Now we don't want any column, we simply specify only the row. Remember that if you open the square brackets, what comes first represents the row, and after the comma represents the column. So at this point, we've selected row 1, 2, 3, right? Good. So the same way, if we want to select column 4 to 5, or let's say columns 3 to 5, you can also specify A, and in this way we don't need a row, and we simply specify the collection representing column 3 to 5, column 3 to 5. So anytime you see a column, read it as 2. So I'm going to write it at this point, column reads as 2, right? Good. So column represents 2, okay? Alright, so let's see, we've seen how to select entire row, entire column, contiguous rows, contiguous column. Let's say we want to select only row 1 and 5. So at this point, we want to select this row as well as this row, right? So we can also use comma. So for instance, if we say A, and we specify the collection representing what we want to select. So we want to select row 1 and 5. And we don't need any column. And we select. So we have an error. Okay. So we have row 1 and 5. Subscript out of bounds. So row is not up to 5. So I was mistaking it for column. So we can only select row 1 and row 4. So you can see select row 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17, 18, and 20. So we are selecting actually non-contiguous rows this time. And the same way, you can select non-contiguous columns. So we want to select row 1. Now we don't specify a column, so we don't specify a row, we just specify the collection representing the column 1 and 5. And we close the square bracket and we have column 1, 1, 6, 10, and 11, as you can see here. Column 1, 6, 1, 6, 11, 16, 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, as you can see. Alright, so you can also select more than 2. It must not be always 2. So you can select 1, 3, and 5. Okay, so you can see it works as well. At this point, I would like to clear my screen, and to clear the screen, I use Ctrl L. Alright, so what am I forgetting? Now you want to select, okay, let me display my matrix first. I want to select just non-contiguous rows as well as non-contiguous columns. Well, what I mean here is that I want to select row 1 and row 2, and under row 1 and 2 I want to select only column 1 and column 2. Okay, under row 1 and 2 I want to select only column 1 and 5. How do you do this? It's about the same way. So in this case, you specify the collection of row you want to select. I want to select row 1 and row 5 and row 2. Okay, and at this point I only want column 1 and column 5. What do you think is going to give us? I'm going to write it out. So what we are going to get in this case, row 1 and 2, column 1 and column 5. So you have 1, row 1 and 2, right? Row 1 and 2, column 1 and 5. So we have 1, 6, and we have 5, 10. So if you don't know how we get this, try to pause the video and see if you can understand it. 1, 6, 5, 10. So let's see. Because we are selecting row 1 and row 2, but we only need column 1 and column 5. So let's see. 1, 6, 5, 10. So this is how to select non-contiguous rows and non-contiguous columns. I would like to tell you to take some time to review it and make sure you understand it. Let's now see how to exclude rows or columns. So let's say let's select an entire, okay, let's say we want to select, for instance, row 1. You already know that to select row 1, you simply say, I want to select only the row without the column. So you simply say row 1 without the column, so you select row 1. But what we want to do now is we want to select, let's say, row 1 to 4, but we want to exclude let's say that we want to exclude row 3. So you simply say A. At this point, to exclude a range, you simply use the minus sign. A minus sign is going to exclude this range. So we want to exclude row 2, right? And then we don't need the column. So at this point, it's going to give us row 1, row 3, and row 4. So let's see. So you have row 1, starting from 1, 2, row 3, starting from 11, and row 4, starting from 16. Let's say I want to select all the columns excluding column 1 and 2. So in the same way, I'm going to use -C. I'm going to put a comma because we are not selecting any row. Remember, what comes before the comma should be rows, and if you omit the row, then it's going to select everything. Alright? So at this point, I want to exclude column 1 and column 2. And I'm selecting all the columns excluding column 1 and 2. It's going to give us 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So as you can see, it's selected. So I've treated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different topics in few minutes. I hope you've understood it. If not, try to pause the video and see how you can get it right into your head. So we are going to continue in the next lesson, and we're also going to continue working with, this time we are going to talk about plotting graphs and images in RStudio. So I'm going to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next class.